I'm here with actor Billy Peck, who some of you may recognize from Quantico or Gotham. He has played heavily recurring roles on each of those series. Before we talk about that, though, let's talk about when you first decided you wanted to become an actor. I knew you grew up in Ohio.
Sure. So I grew up in a rural community in Ohio. My hometown had about 400 people in it. And I think I started just like everybody else did. I did musicals and plays and all sorts of those things. And I genuinely enjoyed it, and it was a passion for me. And towards the end of kind of my high school experience, I kind of figured out that that was going to be my path. You know, a lot of other people were going into other fields, but I moved to New York City and went to school. And here we are today. You know, it's really rewarding being an actor.
Did you come out by yourself?
Yeah, I moved to New York City at 18 years old with no money in my pocket. Moved to the Upper East Side. You know, my mom cried on the corner of Fifth Avenue, but it was quite the adjustment. You know, when you go from 400 people to 8.1 million people in New York City, it was a little bit of a culture shock, and it was hard. But I don't regret it.
What overwhelmed you the most when you got here? Was it there were so many people? Was it the rat race? And
there were so many people and the speed of the city and, you know, cabs flying by you. And it actually happens, like in the movies where the cab splashes you with water. You know, it's that welcome to New York moment. But, you know, I was used to peace and quiet and big spaces. And then, you know, when you get everybody so enclosed and, you know, cars flying by and noise, I mean, it was a tough adjustment. But now I would find it hard to go back.
right,
Yeah.
because once you're in the city, it's so ingrained in you as a person.
The speed.
Yeah.
The speed. I just got back from a trip for the holidays, and as you can imagine, going grocery shopping with your mother in central Ohio is a little slower than Times Square.
Yeah, that is a very true statement. That trying to not be in a hurry everywhere else you go, after being New York based, is a challenge. So when you came here, you said you studied. Where did you study?
So I took classes at Steppenwolf in Chicago, and I traveled a lot around, particularly the Midwest. So, you know, like Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, took private lessons. But I was awarded a full ride scholarship to the Film Academy here in New York City, which I took advantage of and spent 2 years there. Studied as hard as I could, and then eventually it was time to spread my wings. And there's only so many times you can talk about auditioning and how to play a scene before you just go out and do it.
Right.
Yeah, so that was my college experience. You know, learned a lot there.
And then in 2016, 2017 is really when you came into your own in terms of doing a lot of episodic television. That's when you joined Quantico, right, in 2016?
Yeah, I lucked into that, and I got the opportunity to be one of the core CIA agents, which was really the main plot point of season 2 of Quantico. You know, she went from the FBI in season 1 to the CIA in season 2. And again, a small, what I would think rather insignificant part, but just to be able to watch and learn actors like Blair Underwood or Priyanka Chopra. My seat was next to Priyanka for like 8 months, so I really got to see how she, as an international superstar, works. So that was very interesting. Blair Underwood was lovely. I still talk to some of the cast nowadays. Russell Tovey, it was an incredible time, and Quantico was great. And right around the same time as Quantico, I kind of walked into this strike force role on Gotham, and I was hanging out episode after episode after episode, and then they started calling me in to break down some doors and fire some weapons, and then I would, you know, it's been an incredible journey with Gotham. 4 seasons. I've been there for 4 seasons. I came in the middle of season 2, and I've gotten to learn so much from Donald Logue, who's Harvey Bullock, who has been in literally everything you can imagine, and Ben McKenzie has been so great to me, almost mentor-like, you know, because he really represents something that I would like to grow into. You know, the number one on a network television show, plays a character kind of similar to kind of what I could do, and it's just been incredible. And to be a part of something that's so beloved by fans, you know, you're talking about DC Comics and Gotham and something related to Batman, which is obviously huge to a lot of people.
And being the storylines as they are on Gotham, you get plenty of screen time based on the fact that you're part of the strike force.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
desperately needed in that town.
So yeah, the strike force is incredible because you know you have the normal GCPD, and then when stuff is really going down, you know the prototypical Joker that we have that's not quite the Joker yet, and all these crazy iconic villains or the before versions of these iconic villains. You know, I've gotten to do some pretty interesting things on the show, and again, to be a part of something like that is just incredible.
Have you worked with any of the actors who portray those villains closely, or have you just been able to watch them from afar as they're doing their stuff before you break in?
Well, obviously, depending on shooting schedules, some things are shot before, or you know whatever. Or my call time could be later, so it's not always like that. I will tell you, my experience almost exclusively is running into a fictitiously burning building or blowing up building with Ben McKenzie or Donald Logue. But I do get snippets where I get to kind of interact with those kind of more iconic villains, and that's pretty cool when that does happen.
Now that film's here in New York City, and then they really make it look very dark and edgy once it's actually edited. What's it been like for you filming here in the city and then watching it come to life on screen based on how dark and disturbing they actually make it?
Well, I'll tell you. So Gotham, obviously, for anyone that watches it, is a very special effects driven show. So what we film will end up looking very different by the time it airs. So with me being on the strike force, there's a lot of bullets flying. There's a lot of explosions and all sorts of stuff. Now, unfortunately, sometimes we can't just blow things up in the middle of the street in Manhattan. So, you know, shockingly, right? New York City has rules. I wouldn't have imagined
I would
it.
never have thought that.
But no, it's, you know, and obviously when they go into post, they make it darker and edgier and grittier and all sorts of stuff. But I've really enjoyed. And I've gotten to do a lot of really cool, very athletic, very kind of physical things on the show that I've enjoyed. You know, jumping out of cars, breaking down doors, you know, firing the rifles. It's been incredible. And the rest of the strike force has pretty much been the same since season 2. It hasn't had a lot of turnover, so created some really amazing relationships.
Yeah, just a few of them at an untimely end.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you weren't one of them.
I
feel like one got a heel through the head, if I'm not mistaken.
That, but I guess you'll have to tune into season 5 to see if I make it out of there. So you know.
Well, hopefully you do. No spoilers here.
No spoilers.
We don't do that, but we know you wrapped recently, and so did the entire series. So that's a good indication. Hopefully we'll get to see you the entire time, unless they filmed out of order.
Wait, well, you know, I can't really answer that.
Do you see how I like to try to trick you into giving that away?
Oh, I am solid. You can't trick me. Let me
You
tell
also were on NBC's new hit Manifest. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, that was pretty cool. I got to film a rather intensive scene, just playing a National Guardsman. It was pretty cool. I don't really have a lot to say. It was not very involved. You know, more so, if I could talk about, one of my favorite things I ever got to do was on a CBS multicam kind of almost sitcom called Kevin Can Wait with Kevin James. That was really one of my favorite things I've ever done. You know, I had a scene just with Kevin, and it was so cool because I used to sit with my grandfather in Central Ohio and watch King of Queens, like, you know, the reruns of that show. And it was so sentimental and kind of nostalgic to be able to be like, you know, I used to watch this guy, and now I'm sitting here doing a scene with him, just him and I. And I mean, that was at the risk of sounding pretentious. When people that you used to watch growing up start to become your peers, that's an interesting time.
Yeah, and it was also a departure for you because you were doing comedy, right? In the show, or
yeah, you know, I consider myself more, you know, a serious actor. It's such a silly thing to say, but. Yeah, you know, it's comedy. I'll give him the credit. He did all the work. I can't really take any credit for that, but he's a funny guy. But yeah, so that kind of multi-cam sitcom thing is interesting because it's almost a mix of theater and film. You know, so it's different than the kind of single camera 1-hour dramas that in Quantico and Gotham. It's totally different. Now,
talk a little bit about your new project, Vice Squad. NYC. Is there anything you can tease about that, or do you have to kind of hold?
Well, Vice Squad is interesting because it's in pre-production, but essentially Vice Squad is going to be just a grittier take on the cop shows, not so cleaned up, not so polished. And similar to like, Chicago PD and Chicago Fire, where they take, multiple cities and, mix things up and multiple different organizations, it's really going to be kind of a multi-city thing, assuming that everything flushes out the way it should, and I believe it will. There will be task forces from New Orleans and New York and Las Vegas, and when that all comes together, it should be interesting, and then you'll get some overlap from from characters, depending on the cities. So it's pretty darn cool.
That's awesome. Now, you, like you said, started out with theater. You're based here in New York. What are your dreams for the stage? I know you've also done directing. What do you have?
I've directed a few shows, and it's been really rewarding. And I'll tell you, because I think it probably let me in on how annoying I could be as an actor. Like, this is how I feel, and this is how the scene should go. When, as a director, you have to be responsible for the overall arc of a show. And it just let me see it from the other side. And I think it made me a better actor and a better director. As far as stage, I started on stage. Musical theater specifically. I feel very comfortable there, but my dreams have sort of manifested into being more film and television. But I would never say no to being back on stage, because it's an incredible experience, especially when you have a great cast and you're involved in a great show. I mean, it's electric to go out and see that you're affecting a live group of people. There's no editing. You either get it right or you don't. It's an incredible experience.
You also dabbled a little bit on reality-based television with Love Connection and The Proposal.
Interesting.
What was that like, being behind the scenes of a quote-unquote real-life type project?
So it was interesting, because I viewed those, as silly as some people may find it. I think that you can be an actor and a performer while simultaneously wanting to find love and wanting to find your person. So I went into those, believe it or not, with the hope but not the expectation to possibly find someone that could be important to me. What is interesting about those is it's so much more involved than you think. You think you just put people out there and you roll cameras, but there are producers and storylines just like everything else. And not to say it wasn't real, because it certainly was, and some people's feelings were definitely involved, but just a different world than what I was used to. And a different audience and a different group of people watch those kind of shows, so it was cool to dabble. Do I think that I will be foraying into those kind of things again? Maybe not, possibly. But very, very interesting. And it kind of led me into like these tabloid storms, and I mean, that was an interesting part of my life, to say the least. But it made me grow as a human and as an actor, and I had a lot of fun doing those shows. I don't regret it. In fact, I don't regret any choice I've made in my career, because you learn from them and you grow either way. So
absolutely, that's a very positive way to look at it, and a very true one. So this interview will be posted just after the New Year when Gotham premieres, which is January 3rd.
January 3rd on Fox, people. You better tune in.
What have you got coming up in 2019? What would you like to do? What would you like to pursue?
Well, 2019, obviously for an actor, I don't know how much people talk about the business here, but the beginning part of the year can be quite slow. So I'm going to take some rest time and some travel time. But as we get into pilot season, it's going to be all about auditioning.
Yeah.
I'm going to be working with a new manager, keep the same agent, so there's going to be some changes in kind of my lineup. But I really want to go out there and book a series regular on a network show. That's really the goal. I have the chops to do it. It's more about hard work meeting opportunity, if you know what I mean.
Is there a specific type of show that you want to go after, or do you not want to pigeonhole yourself into a certain genre?
I don't want to pigeonhole myself, because I think kind of my type and my look and the characters I play kind of do that enough already. But I think I'd excel in like a procedural, especially medical dramas. I feel like I do well, or even a cop show, etc., Gotham style kind of stuff. Yeah. I find that stuff interesting, and I think it sells really well. But ultimately, I'm proud and glad to be a working actor. I pay my bills as an actor. It's hard to do.
Yeah. Now, one thing you have not done as a New York actor, and I was surprised, you have not appeared on a Law and Order. episode.
I have not.
How have you gone this whole time without appearing on Law and Order? That is like the seminal New York actor experience.
I don't know. I have auditioned for Law and Order a couple times, but every time I go in there, it's for like a 14-year-old kid. They're like, "What are you doing?
Yeah, like
Why are you in
notice
here?"
the facial hair on Billy.
Yeah, I know, but if I shave, I look like 15. But then I'm like, "I promise, I didn't kill her." And they're like, "Get out, get out."
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Billy, for taking time to meet up with me. Very appreciated, and I hope you have a great 2019, and here's to more success in your future.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity.